Welcome everyone, today you have a new guide for Diablo 4, and in this video I really wanted to make an updated post-beta tier list for you guys between all 5 of the classes. Now as at the end of the beta, I have played over 100 hours into the beta and I've tested over 20 builds for different classes, so I really wanted to make this updated tier list for you guys after the beta and also to look into the classes, as to which of the classes will be really good for leveling at the launch for June, and also which of the classes you'll be looking for farming. I also want to highlight other things about build variation, damage and also hardcore potential, how you will fare with the other players in the multi-game and also in the open world, and also what are the PVE content and also the PvP content you can expect with those classes, and also how to prepare for the launch in June. Quite excited, can't wait for the game to come out. Now in order to prepare you guys with a good summary and also more footages in-game to explain what I mean by the tier list, make sure you see the second part, which I'll show you guys a walkthrough of the video clips. Now on the topic of getting the legendaries, so what I also want to mention in this particular video, but not too much because I don't want it to go too long. Let's say when we're going for the Druid, you might want to go with Pulverize, you might want to go with Wolf Companions for more damage for the 2 builds I made in the beta. Those are not bad for leveling and also for farming monsters. But what you also want to know is, you want to know how many of the legendary offensive codexes are available for the class, and if there's a lot of them, that means you're actually rolling between, for the Druid it's actually between 34 of the legendary codexes. The less the total amount of legendaries there is for the offensive class, or for the class that is offensive, the more easy for you to get your offensive build and also get your build going. And this is one of the reasons behind some of my rankings. So over here you can see some of my rankings, I've given some class a little higher ranking because they might have less legendaries to look for, and they might be able to use multiple resources, like the sources, which she can use, fire, she can go lightning, she can go ice. There's a lot of varieties. So I have based on my rankings based on our previous guide, and if you do want to see this guide, I'll have the links available for you guys. This is a really good gambling guide to show you exactly how to get any of the codexes and also aspects. So coming over to a tier list. Now do keep in mind guys, I have a really bad habit of giving things too high of a rank, and this is my mistake of not clarifying in the first tier list. So here I do have a note for you guys, because I tend to rank things 1 out of 10 and everything is above 5. So if you want to see this tier list more critically, make sure you see this tier list as 5 out of 10. So we're only ranking between 5 out of 10. So the lowest is 5, the highest is 10. So this way it's easier to see the tier list and you can see the variety. So right away you can see with leveling, for me Barbarian is going from 6.5 to 8, and what that means is, depending on the build and also your adjustment for Barbarian, some parts of the gameplay can be very smooth, other parts, especially single target, could be really difficult until you get to level 24 or 25 with your special burst ultimate. And this is not the case for the Rogue and also Sorcerers. Both of them have some very good starting spells, and they're very mobile, very flexible, and great damage. And of course, one of the highlights will be the Necromancer. At very low level, Necromancer have skeletons, and with skeletons you can do a lot of content, do against bosses, elites, anything in the world, in the event you can do it, and you get to see it in the videos. Now here you can see that I've given Druid 5.5 out of 8, so there's a very big room for scaling for the Druid for leveling. You may be wondering why, because as you're going to see in the second part of the video, which I'll show you guys how difficult it is for Druid to start things off, the developers have mentioned that some classes will have a different scaling and also power spike system, and for the Druid especially, because the potential to grow and also level faster come with the Druid with the future specializations of the Druid companions. So let's say if I'm building my Druid and all of a sudden I get my Druid to gain a lot of thorns, and all of a sudden I can be a tanky Druid and also kill things fast. Or I can go with, increased critical chances and also critical damage. There's also a lot of synergies with your companions, which lowers your companion cooldown. And what that means is, our Wolf build of the Druid can be like almost infinite reset, and this can be very powerful. Especially you can see I can easily get 50 or 60% critical chances, and this is really good. Now the second component for the tier list for me will be the farming speed. This will focus on how fast the class and also skills can clear out a mob of elites. We're not looking into the bosses, we're looking for elites to farm golden rare items and also legendaries for the build to be established on the next part. As for Barbarians, it is pretty half-half for me. The Rend Bleeding build is not bad, the Whirlwind build is not bad. As for the Rogue, there's a lot of varieties. So the Rogue and also Sorcerers really do shine over here, because you can be a melee Rogue, you can be a, you can be a Fire Sorcerer, you can be an Ice Sorcerer, a lot of good enchantments for those 2 classes. And of course for the Necromancer, Necromancer is quite flexible. You have your armies, you have a Corpse Explosion, which deals tons of damage, and if you do get Blood Mist plus Corpse Explosion, everything just wipes, right? And of course, you can go with minions, you can go with Dark, Shadow, Blood. So Necromancer's farming speed is very good in terms of AoE and also single target. Now, of course, coming back to the Druid, I'm not picking on the Druid, but the Druid again has a flexibility. Because the choices you have with your companions and also in the later stage of the game, the Druid is likely going to shine. So again, this can go for anywhere from 5 to 7.5. During my testing of the beta, the Druid did have difficulties. And in the next part of the video, you get to see one of my tricks of leveling up the Druid is to find a powerful Necromancer friend and stick next to him. Now, coming over to the ease of the build. So the ease of the build, I mean by that is how easily you can get the build going. And for the Barbarian, it is 7.5 for me. For the Rogue, for the Sorcerers, they're pretty flexible. One of the things we look at the ease of the build is how many offensive codex is available for the class and how many offensive codex you're looking for. For the Druid, currently there's 34 of them. And currently, if I'm playing the Druid, I'm looking for about I'm looking for about 7 of them. So the ratio is not that good. And because of that, the Druid is not getting that high of ease of, combination of your items, and there's a few limitations to the Druid build, because the Earth spells of the Druid have nerfed since beta, so they don't have any special effects anymore. Now, in terms of mobility, the Barbarian actually have a lot of variety of shots and also leaps and also charges, which can be very good. But if you pick a lot of mobility, you can't do damage, right? So it is your choice of moving fast, or you want to, do a lot of damage or be more defensive. For the Rogue's case, it's really good. Rogue is by far the most mobile class. You can dash, you can shadow step, you can evade, you can go into the shadows and get more movement speed. As for the Sorcerers, you tend to not have that much mobility. You might go with a blink, but other than that, you don't have any ultra mobility like the Rogue. And as for the Necromancer and also the Druid, most of your mobility is coming from evade, and this can only happen every few seconds. If you're lucky enough to get a special pens or boost, I believe, you have a double charge for the evade. This can be good, but you don't really look for that, right? So those classes are more durable, but they're more slow comparison. Now, the next few combinations of the tier list is based on my personal experience and also my personal opinion. So do keep in mind, I did enjoy Barbarians a lot, and my enjoyment for the other classes were pretty high as well. But it is especially interesting and also especially high for the Druid. Because I first played the Necromancer on the second beta, and then playing the Druid feels like I'm playing a different game. It is quite difficult, and it's harder to get items, everything seems hard. But the moment you make the difficult build work, and the moment you make the challenging class work, it is so much more enjoyable. And this is why I'm giving the Druid more enjoyment, because everyone knows it's difficult. But if you can make it work, it's like 9 out of 5 or 10 out of 10 for me. So this is a highlight. But do keep in mind, guys, don't miss the 6. If you're going for the Druid, keep in mind, the enjoyment can range from very low to very high. Now, in terms of build variation, for the Barbarians, currently we have the Thorn build, we have the Whirlwind build, and also the Bleeding build. You can also go with the Charge Kick and also the Super Smash build, but those are not that highly variety in comparison to the Rogue and also Sorcerers. The Rogue can go into melee, traps, range form, while the Sorcerers have all 3 elements. The Necromancer itself have a few limitations to the build. Some skills are really good, like the Corpse Explosion, that you might want to perk into everything. Other skills, maybe not much so. And as for the Druid, I have only discovered 2 really good builds so far. I've heard there's a line style build for the Druid, but I haven't got time to test it. So I'm not ranking the variety of the Druid too high, but in the beta this will change. Of course, because we don't have the specialization over here, and also there will be more uniques as we unlocked the 3rd tier of the world. Now, in terms of offensiveness and also defensiveness of the class, you can see I have provided a variety of the numbers. This is actually from my personal experience. I feel like the Sorcerers are very powerful, especially the Hydra ones, where we see how fast Esmeralda can kill things, and especially with the right legendaries. And this is the case for most of the classes. So most of the classes have a very high range of the scoring for me, and the Druid can go for anywhere from 5 to 8.5 or even higher. The Necromancer, on the other hand, is likely going to be nerfed, so this is why it can go as low as 7.5 or as high as 9.5 if the OP score doesn't get nerfed, right? But we know it's going to get nerfed. We'll talk about this very soon in the future videos. In terms of hardcore, if you guys are planning to play hardcore, I really recommend trying the Barbarian, trying the Necromancer, or trying the Druid. I don't recommend trying the Druid right away with hardcore, because you'll have a difficult time. If you're kind of gearing up for the hardcore class, you can try the Necromancer first, and then get items for Barbarian and also the Druid. The Sorcerers are also not bad, because you can have a constant shield with your Ice Armor and also with a Flame Shield. As for the Rogue, it will be a little harder to play hardcore, but it is still doable with the correct items. Now, multiplayer synergy is quite interesting for me in the game, which is my first experience playing Diablo with multiple players. It is quite nice with Barbarian because you have so many shells and you're the tank of the team. As for the Rogue, you're here to do damage, right? If the team needs a melee class or if the team needs a range class, you're there for it. And we know everyone has sources, so sources is always good in the build, because sources can burn enemies, sources can stun enemies, sources can freeze enemies, so sources is always good on the team. And of course, necromancers, they can use corpses created by other players at the moment in the game, and they can do tremendous damage. Necromancer can also tank with golems and also do damage with summons. Now you may be wondering, why did I give higher score for the Druid for the multiplayer synergy? Well, one thing is, the Druid needs other players. We want to be around with other players. The Druid is very good tank, and the Druid have a lot of controls, and some of the Druid legendaries can also provide increased control duration. A lot of classes actually benefit from vulnerability, slow, and also stun enemies, and the Druid can also immobilize enemies. So the Druid is the support and also enabler. The Druid is also the stunner. And the Druid itself have some really good potential, especially with the Summons build. So this is why I give the Druid a higher rank over here. Now over here I provide a little bit summary of the overall my feeling of clearing the PvE content. This is of course a little lower to most of the other scores, and this is just my personal feel. I do feel the Druid is slower to clear the story, but in comparison to other classes, they're pretty similar. And of course, the highlight, which is going to be PvP. Now, why do I rank the Barbarian, also the Druid 7, is because they are melee class. I have tried in the game, and you've seen in the replay over here, so you'll see in the fights over here, as a melee class, this is what happens to you sometimes. You get close to enemies, but if you do good damage, it's good. But most classes in PvP will have Unstoppable, and bosses also have that. And sometimes, if you're melee, this is what happened to you. Not only you get one-shotted by monsters, players can also take advantage of you with crowd control and also with range damage. And if you try to chase them, they will run away, right? They're not like monsters. They will know how to run away, they will kite you. This is why for the range class, the Rogue and also Sources definitely stood out to me. Rogue have so many poison, slow, and also in movement, or the Sources is just great overall. You have shield, you have blink, you have summons, you have a lot of range attack. And as for the Necromancer, you have a few survivability, but your mobility is really low. So I do give a Necromancer a little lower compared to the other two classes, simply because you can see in a lot of my playthroughs, the Necromancer only have evade. Now we can use Bone Prison and other skills to, I guess, trap enemies. But enemies can always teleport, enemies can jump away, and enemies can leap. So this is a little downside for the Necromancer. Now, of course, because we only got to test the classes in beta, in the real launch games might be very different. You might have a Berserk Barbarian with Leap Strike, and you just hop everyone and kill everyone. So we never know, right? We get to see it once the game comes out, and have a better tier list for you guys once the game's launched. Now, before we jump over to the next part, I know some of you guys like to add up the scores. The intention of this tier list is to compare things horizontally, but not vertically. So if you're trying to add up all the scores here to see which class is the highest scoring, it is very hard to compare. Especially sometimes you don't play hardcore, sometimes you're going for mobility. So make sure you guys look at the things on the side horizontally, don't add up the things down there. Because if you add up things down here vertically, the Druid definitely lose out. Now, in order to provide you guys with a justification of how I feel about each classes, I provide a little short clip between all 5 classes. And here I just go through with you guys what I felt in the beta and what might happen when you play the game at launch. So here you'll be perking into Barbarians. You might be like, oh, I'll try my Whirlwind build. And you might be trying different weapons. If you click the middle mouse key, you can use different weapons for special triggers of your lucky hit. Just a pro tip, right? So here I'm trying different weapons. I was like, oh, how good it will be for Whirlwind. Barbarian Whirlwind, it's the iconic Barbarian, right? It is not bad. Especially, going through the story and going through the levels, the Barbarian Whirlwind is not bad. And wait until you find a monster that heals. And the monster that's very tanky. Because you do AoE damage. But, you're tanky, the monster's tanky. And by the time you kind of get the monster down, you'll lose a lot of HP. And this is what happened to me. So yes, this is the feeling of Barbarian. And this is why I give the Barbarian a little lower ranking in some of our rankings over there. And of course, after you're failing with one build, you'll be going back to specking, right? And I was like, okay, I'm going back to my bleeding build. So this is the feeling of Barbarian for me. As for the Necromancer, it feels great. The leveling process is great. You can see I'm a very low level Necromancer, but I can do any of the events, anything in the game at ease. I can farm anything. I can farm devils quick, I can be killing monsters quick, and before you know it, we get a lot more loot than other classes. So Necromancer could be a really good starting class for me. And this is one of the reasons you saw in the tier list I have such high ranking for the Necromancer, right? So here you can see I'm a level 5 Necromancer, and we don't feel difficult against monsters, and we do really good damage. This is not the case for the Druid, at least for my experience. Hopefully things will get better for the Druid once the game comes out, and you know, just playing the Necromancer feels a lot more smoother. And if you do want to play the Necromancer before the Druid, make sure you save some items for your Druid. Now as for the Mage, I didn't get to talk about the Mage too much, right? The Mage feels nice. With the correct items and also the correct skill build, any level feels easy for the Mage. You deal good damage, you're very durable, you're very mobile. And I mean, the Mage is like the iconic class for the beginner players as well. You know, you can try different elements, you can try different combos, and they're very broken and also overpowered, especially the Hydra at the moment, right? And here, just leveling the Mage feels nice. And I guess I didn't get that much time to test the Mage in the beta, but there's a lot of good builds for the Mage, and it's everywhere. Now coming over to the Rogue. The Rogue is very mobile, and the Rogue can dash, the Rogue can deal damage, and the Rogue is very bursty. And the Rogue is also very, fast. You can be traveling fast, you can jump back, you can jump forward, you can do poison, you can do burst damage, and you can do a lot of things. Rogue feels a very action-based class, and because the Rogue can choose between melee and also range, it's very flexible. And I really had a good time playing the Rogue throughout all stages of the leveling. I'm currently level 11 and I don't feel weak at all. I feel like I'm very powerful and I can take any challenges. So this is why you also see a lot of high rankings with the Rogue for me in the tier list. Finally, we have the Druid. The Druid was hard, guys. Leveling the Druid was not easy. And this is because I also have 2 extra renown points for the Druid. So I started having 2 extra points because, I already have 2 renown points. But that was not easy. Even with 2 extra renown points for the skill points with core skills, we still have trouble with the first tutorial boss. It was slamming me. So right away you can tell the Druid is not easy. But rest assured, we have different builds to make the Druid better. And I guess later stage of the game, as you get to the end game, what you're going to feel is a lot of classes you're going to feel to be farming a lot faster. And you get to see, Necromancer farming with Blood Explosion. Likely this build will be nerfed, and this is why my tier list for the Necromancer will have a different range. It can go from lower to higher. It really depends how the build works and if you can find the right legendaries. And of course, farming with Necromancer with different classes is very good. You can see here, I'm actually farming with my friend who's a Druid. And working together, he can provide me with disables while I do the damage. Yeah, Necromancer felt really good in the beta, and this is likely going to be my first class because I might be using Necromancers to get the gears for my other classes and also to get higher renows for more skill points, which could be really good. And also the drop rate is not bad for the Necromancer for some reason. See, and it's a legendary, right? Not bad, not bad. Now finally, before we finish the video, mobility for the Barbarian, how can I miss that? Mobility for the Barbarian is something that is very underrated. The leap skills, the shouts are very good, and even you gain attack speed when you hit enemies. Here we have a ledge rod, usually run around it, but here you can jump. So yeah, this is my highlight for the mobility for the Barbarian. You have so many variety of mobility skills, and this can be very good in making yourself leveling fast and also finishing the game content faster to get to the end game. Now hopefully you guys enjoyed this video, because I did spend over 100 hours of the beta and I really want to give you guys more information and also more footages in the game. So this way it can help you provide a better judgment as which of the classes you want to play and also my reasons behind it. And in the future videos we'll talk about which of the classes to play as well, and also which of the classes I'll be choosing and the reasons behind it as well. Now before you go, and if you guys didn't know, we have a new YouTube channel. And if you guys haven't subscribed, make sure you subscribe and check out the behind the scenes and also fun clips and also more stories about us. And then you get to know me a little more personally instead of just reading the news and also the games, right? So I want to share a little bit more with you guys. So make sure you check this channel out if you're interested about Matt and also Uni. She's really funny too, and she's really shy. So I want to give her a surprise and do a shout out for the new channel to get some subscribers. Thank you guys. I'll see you guys next time.